Hello and welcome to this video. It is an incredibly late top 10 books of 2018. We're already a little ways into 2019 and I have yet to talk about my favorite books of 2018. So I figure better late than never, but here we are now. Filming it for you guys now. Hope you enjoy it. So I read a total of 77 books in 2018. Which is a lot to choose from for a top 10. So let me tell you, making this top 10 was so hard. But I did it, and I'm here to share it with you guys. First, we are going to start with the honorable mentions, and I have 5 honorable mentions. Herding Cats by Sarah Anderson. We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And The Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Backman. Saga, Volume 7 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughn. And Whiskey in a Teacup by Reese Witherspoon. So, at number 10, I have Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. I really enjoyed Mindy Kaling's first book. I can't remember what it's called already. Oh, and I think Everyone Is Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns. That book. I read that book a couple years ago and it made my top 10 of that year. Can't remember what year it was. It was either like 2015 or 2016. So I was so excited that I finally got the chance to read her second book, Why Not Me, which was honestly, I think, just as good as the first one. It was so funny and like smart and witty, and the stories were just so compelling to read about. I just realized I'm probably not in focus. Am I in focus? I'm not like the hugest fan of Mindy Kaling. I never really truly loved like things she's done acting wise, except for maybe The Office. But her books are absolutely incredible and I'm always blown away by them, and I really hope she comes out with a third one because that would just be great. At number 9, I have The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I don't think it's like super special by any means. I think the reason I loved it so much and like really connected with it is because the main character of the story just was so much like me and literally thinks the way I think, does the things I do. Like, it was just so uncanny how much the character reflected me and who I think I am, that I just so connected to the character and I connected so much to the story, and it was just one of those, I don't know, it like wasn't anything too special, but at the same time it was like super special and super personal to me, which is why I definitely think I gave this such a higher rating than I would have, and why I put this book in this top 10. This book is about a girl in high school who has a lot of crushes, but doesn't ever really do anything about those crushes. She just kind of like crushes on them from afar. But it's kind of about her just finding love, but also finding out who she is. So it's like a coming of age story with romance in it. Or it's a romance story with a coming of age story to it. Both. But I also just love Becky Albertalli. I love the way she writes, and I just absolutely love her stories. I think she's great. I can't wait for her to come out with more stuff. At number 8, I have Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. This book was incredible. This was, I want to say, the second book I read this year, but it has still stuck with me to now. This is another nonfiction book that is about, it says it like right on the cover, it's hilarious stories about terrible things. Jenny Lawson writes about her struggles with anxiety and depression, but in such a comedic way. Like, there's no other better way to explain this book. But the way she tells her stories are just so hilarious and so funny, and honestly, I want to read this book again. I don't ever reread books, but I want to reread this one. And the cover too is just absolutely incredible, and I love the title. The title is just so, like, the words don't match with each other, but yet they also kind of do, like Furiously Happy. I just love this book so much. Number 7, I have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I have been meaning to read this book since it actually came out, but I just never did, and so since the movie came out last year, it kind of pushed me to read the book, and the book was so good. I'm not usually a video game person. I don't know, I just can't get into video games, which I think is another reason why I kept pushing this book back, because it was telling me it was like video games. But this was such a fun read. Oh my god. We follow a kid, Wade, who is living in the future. I think it's like 2065 or something in this book, and everyone is now living in like a VR world, virtual reality world. Everyone in the world is pretty much like escaped into this virtual reality room or world, and then they can like come out of it, but most of the time people stay in that world. And then we find out that the creator of this virtual reality world has died and left an Easter egg in the game, and whoever finds the Easter egg gets to take over the game, gets to take over the company. So Wade pretty much enters, and he is the first one to find the first clue, which has been taking people like 5 years to find this first clue. And then the story takes on from there, and then everyone's starting to join and try to find clues, and yeah, it's really fun. I will say it is, if you are an 80s child, you will absolutely love this, because there are so many references to the 80s in this book. At number 6, I have The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. This was a huge surprise for me. I just bought this book on a total whim when I was in a used bookstore. I had heard things about the book, but I was never really like interested in actually reading it. But I just decided to pick it up because it was like $5. So I was like, why not? This was incredible. I was so blown away by how much I enjoyed this story and this writing, and it was so great. This takes place, I want to say, I think it's like the 1920s or the 1930s. We're around like silent film era, and we follow this boy who has been like living in the walls of a train station just fixing the clocks, and he also steals from the vendors in the train station, and one day he gets caught. But the things that he is stealing are like parts and tools to help fix this robot that his dad found. But the old man at the toy store is also kind of connected to the robot. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, because I feel like if I say anything else, I'm going to give away the story. But it is very reminiscent to like 20s film style. So this book, it is a children's book, and it is told not just through words but also through pictures. So it looks humongous, this book, when you see it, but you can fly through it. I got through it within like 2 days, because it's told through like half pictures, half words. This story was just so incredible. I never felt so immersed in like the 20s or 30s until like this book. I literally feel like I was transported back in time with this book. It was so incredible, and how everybody connected and how everything connected throughout the whole story just blew me away. It was absolutely incredible, and the drawings are beautiful. At number 5, I have Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book came out in 2018. It was a debut novel, and it was fantastic. It's a young adult fantasy, and it's the first in a series, which, by the way, the second one comes out super soon. It comes out in March, and I'm so excited to read it. It's based around some like African history, folklore, and mythology, but we follow in this world, magic is gone. The king basically got rid of all the magic, and anyone who still has magic in them is pretty much like suppressed and living in poverty and whatever. But this girl, she has magic, or her mom was magic and died from the king killing her. She ends up finding the magic again and trying to bring it back to the land. So she has to like go on this quest to go and get it. But yet the king and his men and his son are all trying to like stop her and her little crew, but she has the princess with her because the princess ran away and joined her. It's a lot, that I don't want to give away. This book was just absolutely fantastic. It did not feel like a debut novel. So the fact that like it didn't feel like a debut novel and yet it was, I just can't wait to see what she does in the future. Because like the writing was just so descriptive and so immersive into the world, but yet also not like super flowery. Like it was just, ugh, it was great. I have no words. Fantastic. At number 4, I have the Illuminae series. Mainly Gemina, because Gemina is my favorite of the series, but I read the entire series this year, and the series as a whole was just fantastic. This is a young adult sci-fi trilogy. It takes place way in the future with an intergalactic space war, and we mainly follow teenagers. In each book we follow 2 different teenagers, but by the 3rd book they kind of all come together and you see how they come together. But in like each book that you follow 2 different people and in 2 different parts of the war, if that makes sense. But it is just so fun, absolutely fun. And the way that the story is told was nothing like I've ever read before. It is the most interesting and creative way I've ever seen someone tell a story. It's not just like words written on a page. The story is basically told through like emails, dossiers, text messages, video footage, like video surveillance footage. You see some stuff through the AI's perspective. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but like you just see it through different like files and dossiers. That's like the best way I can explain how this story is told. It is just so cool, and you see like little graphs and diagrams too to help you explain what like the ships look like and where things are on the ship, so you kind of see a map as to like where they are and where they need to go to save the world. It's so fun, and there is just like a sprinkle of romance in it too. It is just the coolest thing, and even though the books are ginormous, you are able to fly through them because it is mainly like pictures and like few words here and there. Like it is just so cool. Really enjoyed this series a lot. At number 3, I have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This didn't get a whole lot of like really great reviews this year. I don't know why. I think maybe it's just because I'm new to the thriller world, so to me this was just like, what? Mind blown. But this is an adult thriller about a woman who went to camp when she was younger, and the 3 girls that were in her cabin ended up leaving in the middle of the night and never coming back, and like went missing and are presumed dead. 15 years later, she goes back to that camp as a camp counselor, and she's basically trying to solve what happened to her cabin mates that year. And believe me, it is intense. And the story is told in like the present day, but you do have the flashbacks to the past that kind of connect to what's happening in the present at the moment. And you see like the lies that she told back then that like could totally change the story. Now 15 years later, a lot of the truth is coming out. This was just one of those books where it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading it. And then the ending. Okay, the ending is what really made this book like a 5-star book for me. Because in the whole time I'm reading it, like yes, I was on the edge of my seat, but it was also just kind of like, okay, I'm down with this, like it's fine. But the ending was like no ending I've ever read before. I didn't see it coming. It blew my mind, that ending. And it kind of, this book also really got me into thrillers, so I do want to read more thrillers now, because this was incredible. At number 2, I have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was so hyped up throughout the entire year. Like all year I kept hearing about The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I was like, okay, I will give it a try. Just calm down, like I'll get there. Eventually, I did read it, and I'm so happy I finally read it because the hype is worth it with this book. It is so good. This is a historical fiction about a woman, Evelyn Hugo, and her 7 husbands. The present day of this book is, I want to say, like now, and she's an 85-year-old woman. She's kind of like retired from the acting world, but she was like the biggest star. I think like Meryl Streep or Marilyn Monroe. I feel like they based this character off like Marilyn Monroe. But like she was the biggest star in like the 40s and 50s and 60s. Like she was huge and she was in a lot of stuff. And she had 7 husbands. And so now that she's 85, she wants to tell her story. And so she hires this woman, Monique, to write her autobiography. And of course Monique is like, why are you asking me to do this? And then you see by the end the connection between Monique and Evelyn Hugo, but you also learn about her 7 husbands, and you're basically learning which one was her actual true love. But it is just so emotional and so real. Like, these characters felt like real people to me. It is astonishing how every time I like put down the book, I was just like, I want to watch an Evelyn Hugo movie. And like, they don't exist. They're not real. This was just a fascinating story. It was so well written. I sobbed reading this book. I was sobbing. Like, thank God I didn't read this one in public because I cried like a baby. Oh my God. It was so good though. It made my heart feel so warm, but yet it also broke my heart. And at number 1, this is no surprise, I feel like, to anybody, but it's the Harry Potter series. This year was the first year I read Harry Potter. I had never read it before. Finally read it. I mean, I'd watched the movies like religiously for years because I love the movies. So the fact that I finally got to these books was a long time coming, and it should have happened sooner. But here we are. Read the Harry Potter series. I don't need to explain the Harry Potter series to you. I think everybody in the world knows what Harry Potter is about. A boy finds out he's a wizard and goes to wizarding school and has to fight a bad guy. It's great. And the thing is, knowing what happens in the movies, but like reading the books, yeah, you know what happens sometimes because like it happens in the movies, but it didn't affect the way I felt about it. Like with certain characters' deaths, like I cried during the movie and I still cried reading the book. And then also with the book, there were so many new things that they obviously couldn't put in the movie, so I learned a lot more about this world and a lot about the characters that I didn't know before, and it was just, it was so good. My favorite in this series is definitely Goblet of Fire. Those are my top 10 books of 2018. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it wasn't as like descriptive and informative as my past videos. I'm just really in a rush today. I also have listed down below every single book that I read this year, so that way you can see what I am basing this list off of. Thank you for watching this. I do also have a top 10 movies and top 10 TV shows of 2018, so please go also check those out, and I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye!